Should you use brushes or the modeling tool to prototype and build your levels? How to balance speed creation versus performance? In this video, I'm breaking down two powerful but very different tools in Unreal Engine 5.4 and 5.5, the classic brush tool and the more advanced modeling mode. We'll look at the basics of their use, what they do best, how they affect your game's performance, and when to switch from one to the other. Stick around because I'll show you how to speed your workflow and boost performance without needing to become a modeling expert. But before we begin, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a tutorial on Unreal Engine and build your dream career in the video game industry. And don't forget to visit Woolun.com to learn more about the Game Creator Accelerator, a lifetime mentorship program designed to give you the methodology to build a successful career in video games with me at your side. Now, let's get started. To best understand the differences between the brush editing and the model tool, the best way is to start with a project, and let's select this basic. And I'm going to work with the tools. Let's begin with the brush editing. Select here the option of brush editing. And you will be presented with these options to work on this map. But the best way to start using this tool is by selecting Placing Actors. Pick this option that says Geometry. And let's take one of these options like this box and drag it into the scene. So I can move around, and immediately if I select, let's say, one of the sides of this geometry, I can drag and expand that geometry. If I use the snapping tool, you can set this to, let's say, 100 and snapping every 100 here. Now, there is other tools. One very simple and that we use a lot is the extrude, which for this one, it will create more geometry for this object. So at this moment you have all the faces of this cube, but if I use the extrude tool and extend a little bit more, now you can see that we are on the top, on the sides, and on the bottom, that we have not just one side but two sides. That means that I can also take this side and extrude it to in another direction. Well, in this case I'm not extruding, I'm editing. If I want to extrude, then I have to select the side, click on extrude, do not show this again, and now I can extrude that side. Look at the difference between what it is editing or pulling one of the sides and extruding one of the sides. What is great about this is that it is really simple to use this tool, and you can create any structure that you want, I have to say, pretty fast. You can also add the number of length and the segments that you want this length to have. Let's say that I have a length that is 16, but I want to add 2 segments. And I select, of course, the extrude. If I apply, then you will have, like is shown here, 2 segments of 16 centimeters. If I want to of, let's say, 100, which is 1 meter, then you have all the two of 100. You can also select multiple segments or multiple sides using the control and, using the control and clicking on the other segment. And again, if you select extrude, you can extrude those sides. But it is not just that. You can also, I'm going to add a new actor, a new box, place it here. You can also work not just with the sides, but also with some of the vertices of this structure and create something pretty different. And also you can select the corners and do something like this. So as you can imagine, it is pretty easy to create anything with the editing tool, with the brush editing mode. The pros about using the brush editing tool is that it is very simple. You can use these limited tools to change the geometry or change the structure of these objects, and you can also work with these simple actors and add whatever you want. The downside is the performance, because Unreal has to keep all the information about this entire geometry, and you can see here that the type of these objects, both objects are brush, This is very expensive to, this is an information in terms of data that is very expensive for Unreal. You will use this in cases that you are doing a level block out and you want to test something very, very fast. But if you want to release your game, definitely this is not the type of objects that you want to use. If you want to release your game, the only type of object you should have are the static mesh actors. We'll get to that in a second. Another differentiation about the type brush is that they belong to the map that you already have here, to the scene that you have here. If you move to another scene, this is not an information that will be saved in the content browser. They are just part of the scene where they were created. Now let's move to the other way to modeling in Unreal. Click here, the option of modeling. Immediately you can see the difference between these two tools. This is a more complex tool, and usually I have to tell you that it takes more time to understand it. Let's work with a similar object that we use for the brush editing tool. You can see here on the left that you have several objects. I want to pick the box. As soon as you click the box, you have all these options to set up this object, and if you drag the mouse, you already have an object that you can place on the scene. Let's say I want to place this object on the scene. At this moment, if I want to make any changes to this object, I have to use the parameters that are presented here, which is, if you ask me, a bit annoying. The option I have here is to first accept this, select the object again, go to Model, and then select the polygroup editing. And now I can start doing similar things to what we did a second ago. The problem with this, let me click here on Cancel, is that at the moment that I create an object, you will see here in the outliner that this object is of the type StaticMeshActor. And the StaticMeshActors are saved on the content browser. That means that in this direction, generated, here I have this object that I created a moment ago. So if you create some objects that you are testing and maybe you are not so sure, you can fill all this information with content that is unnecessary. The good thing is that in terms of performance, these are the best actors. The static mesh actors are for final assets and optimize geometry. If you want to release your game, you have to use static mesh actors, definitely no brush actors. Now, different to the brush, these static mesh actors are more difficult to change once you already set them. You have to select the object, go to Model, select the polygroup, and then make the corresponding changes in case that you want to add them. Now, let's say that you want to create an object using the modeling tool, but you don't want to be added a static mesh immediately because you want to play with this. In that case, select the Create, the object that you want to add, and in the output type, instead of picking the default option, which is the static mesh actor, you can create the dynamic mesh. When you create a dynamic mesh, that's presented here with an example, and you click on Accept. In fact, let me make it just a little bit a difference. Let me expand this to, let's say, 200 to make it different. If I click on Accept, you will see that this object is not safe in the content browser. In the outliner, the object is classified as a dynamic mesh actor, which is very great because, well, now I can also continue using the modeling tool without having this space or losing the order in my corresponding folder. The dynamic mesh actors has a performance that is exactly between the brush and the static mesh actors. The brush are the worst, the static mesh actors are the best, and the dynamic mesh actors are in the medium. The perfect use case is the runtime geometry, or as I explained it, using the modeling tool. Now let's say that you are working with this object and you finally decided, okay, this is the version that I want for the release of my video game. In that case, you can select the object here on the viewport or here in the outliner. In the modeling mode, select the X form and click on Convert. In the output type, you can select any other type of object. Because you want to transform this into a static mesh, the final static mesh for your video game, select Static Mesh. And when you click here, Accept, they will be part of your library of static meshes inside the content browser. Now, you can also use this object in any other map or any other scene of your game. This is good. Now you know how to transform a dynamic mesh actor into a static mesh actor. Look here. But Unreal not only provides you with that option, you can also select a brush actor, let's say this one that we created a second ago, and you can also transform it into a static mesh or even a dynamic mesh actor. Select again the actor on the outliner, and the X form you can select Convert and define what type of object you want to transform it into. Let's say I want to transform it into a dynamic mesh, and now I can accept. And now the object is a dynamic mesh actor. You cannot transform it any longer using the brush editing tool, but using only the modeling tool. But this also provides you with new features that you don't have or that you are limited when you are working with the brush editing. All these features that I'm not planning to cover at this moment. To summarize this video, what I want to tell you is that you can use any of the tools depending on how urgent you need the results. I have to say that if I have to do things really fast, I usually go to the brush editing tool. There is another tool inside the landscape, in the modeling tool that I can use, but I don't want to cover that at this second. But I usually go to the brush editing and do things really fast in terms of for testing a concept. Now, if you have more time and you want to develop more details in the objects, then definitely the way to go will be the modeling mode. But also you can start creating the basic things with the brush editing tool, which is, I have to say, is more easier to control based on the options that they present. And then when you reach that point, when you feel that, okay, I need to do something else, then you can transform that object into a dynamic mesh actor and then continue working with the modeling tool. Keep always in mind that the actor brush has the worst performance, that the dynamic mesh actor has the medium performance, and that the best performance belongs to the static mesh actors. If this video added value to you, like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss tips and tutorials on Unreal Engine and how to build your successful career in video games. And be sure to check out the next video on Unreal Engine 5.4, landscape displacement, easy using nanites and mega scans, and make your scene pop with dimension, not just flat terrains. Until next time, keep creating, keep sharing, and most importantly, keep dreaming big. I'll see you soon, my fellow creators.